Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Thank you for joining me. So in this episode we are going to be building a Murphy bar. I've been looking forward to doing this for quite some time, and we are going to pretty much get straight into it. So if you've been following my channel, you'll know that I have been doing a number of projects around the house, and one of them is building a garden room, which is here. It works as an office, a spin room, and also it will act as a kind of entertainment cinema room as well as a Murphy bar. So this is the material that I've got. It's 18mm birch ply, which I purchased from Ply Direct in West London, and essentially they do a cut to size service. So I got all of the sizes pre-cut and we're just gonna fix it together essentially. But I don't want any screw holes, so we're going to pretty much be using a dowel system and wood glue to pretty much get it all mounted together, and then we're going to hang it on the wall here. So for this I've got my wood glue, I've got my dowel jig, I've got my dowels there, a normal drill and some drill bits, and that pretty much is what we're going to use to mount it all together. So we've got two sections here. So these are the sides, this is the leg, that is the leg, this is an internal shelf, and this is the top and bottom shelf. Then we've got a 21mm, which I was going to use for the bar top, but again I think it's overkill, so I might use this for the back plate to allow it to have a bit more rigidity as it sticks to the wall. And then we've got an 18mm as well. So I'm not too sure which positions I'll place these two in yet at this stage, but we'll see. And kind of birch ply is just the effect that I go for. I like it. I've used it here, I've used it in my other builds, which you'll be able to see in my other videos. I do like the material, it does give a really nice effect when it's oiled, so we'll crack on. But in the meantime, if you want to see the main build, then follow and subscribe. And then this is the outbuilding itself. Actually, this is kind of it all laid out in position, so this is what it's going to look like. As you can see, the inner shells sit just below, so when the Murphy bar is closed, it will close into this space and just kind of make it look uniform and give a nice detail of the birch ply around. I think that's what I like the most. And then once it's oiled, it comes out really nice. There you go. So what I need to do is work out where my dowels are going to go in the jig, so I'm going to start doing some markings. What I'll do is I'll remove the center bits and do the outside first. We want it to fit nice and flush to the corners like so. And I've put a mark across the backboard, so just a quick line in two places there and then two places there. And then what I will then do is I'll get my square. I can then put a straight line across the inside there, and across the inside there, which then means I can start drilling in with my jig. But before I do that, I'll need to just measure, make sure I get the middles, and then start essentially doing that on all corners. I will need to do this side panel last, so I can then drill and bolt these in the back and at the sides as well. It's just going a bit overboard, but I'd just rather it last long term and be durable, because who knows, might start making them and selling them. So we transfer the line across the top where we actually want to, or the side even, where we want to drill our hole. Put that line across in two places, and then we've got our halfway mark. So I've marked it down to 9mm and put it against the side, and I've put my lines across. And because I've used this level, I can then transfer this line onto there, and that will give me the exact same height from the bottom of the board. So at least we're not trying to measure, we know that it's going to be exactly the same position when we come to drill our holes. And I'll just put an X to put the center point of where we put our plugs. So I'll now transfer this same line onto the side of this side panel. So we want one here and then one here, and then once I drill my holes, the dowel should fit in perfectly, and we can test it before we glue it. So we'll see how we get on. Right, so we've put our dowels in for the side panel here, and I've just kind of lined it up to see, and the X marks the spot perfectly on these sides, so I know that where we drill will be spot on. So we will drill our holes in here. Now obviously we can't go too deep because it's 18mm, so the best thing to do is get your drill bit
and work out the full depth. We don't want to go right through, and then get some tape around as far as you want to go. So say we want to go into the wood a centimetre, we'll just put some tape a centimetre high, and then we'll know that we hit our mark every time. So now when I drill in, I know exactly. I'm happy with that. So it's the first join complete, and that is pretty flush. Probably out by about 1 mil at the top. So what I have to do is just, when I glue it, you can literally pull it in place, but when I glue it I just have to make sure that I've opened that section up and just pulled that down just to hold in place. But yeah, it is going to look really nice once the joins are complete. On to the next. Right, what I'm going to do is, so I'm going to now do that side. I'm going to leave one dowel in each way so I know which way it goes back in, so it doesn't flip over the wrong way and end up misaligned. So I leave one dowel in there, one in there, and when I put it back I know exactly which way it goes back in. Okay, so we have now done both of the bottom sides, this side here and this side, and they've come out really well, so very pleased with those. Gonna do the top next, and then gonna do the shelves. See, the back panel itself is gonna have to be cut, and it's gonna have to be cut at an angle because the bottom section will be screwed to the wall, and then the top section will be wedged behind it to hold it in place. I'll show you that bit at the next stage. Okay, so we've now done the outer frame, which is all doweled and pretty level. This one is out by about 1 mil. That's smooth, and that's smooth. So what I'm going to do is just open up the dowel just a tiny bit so I can level that off, and then I'll use clamps to hold it together in place when I glue it. But great job to apply direct for getting the cuts bang on. Really, there's a slight gap at the bottom, that's because it's opened up, so once that's all glued and tightened, that will close up that gap. But overall, really pleased with it. So what we'll do is we're going to get the shelves lined up. It's taking me about 1 hour and 10, which is pretty cool because I'm just taking my time with it. I want to make sure that the measurements are right, so I'm not rushing it.
True. Anthony B, Ragamuffin with the Iriites crew out of France. One piece on there with it.
Right, so I've marked where the bottom of the shelf is, and then what I'm going to do is, the shelves I know are 18 mil, so I'm going to measure up 9 mil up from the bottom of the shelf, and then I'm going to measure 9 mil, which is the center of the shelf itself at the sides, and then work out where I'm going to measure width-wise, and then drill my holes, and that should give me the perfect level shelf internally. Right, so if you didn't know, this is the be-all and end-all of this project. This tool is a absolute must because it helps you get your right angles and get everything nice and lined up. So as I said, we're doing the internal shells now. So what I've done is I got my shells, found my center point, and then I have measured from the bottom at 1 inch, and then I've measured again at 4 inches, and then I've just basically transferred that line across. And then I've marked 2 lines on here. So the bottom line is at 33 centimeters, which is the bottom of where I want the shelf to be. Then I measured in 9 millimeters, which is center point of the shelf. And then I transferred my 1 inch and my 4 inch markings onto the shelf there, just using the ruler on both sides. and then I now have my center points where I need to drill, so I can now get those drilled in, and that should be my shelf leveled 100% perfect. So we'll see how we get on. Hopefully that does the trick. So it is now new morning for me, but same video for you. So we have done all of our dowel cuts for sectioning all the pieces together. Now last night I made a massive error and I didn't follow my own advice, and that's why it's good to assist yourself as much as you can in order to get the job done right. But essentially on this one I've drilled all the way through and come through, which is highly annoying. So luckily I guess I get to show you how to do a repair. So we will do a repair on that at a later stage, and the way we'll do that is by using this leftover sawdust and some wood glue, making a mix, and then we'll have to sand it down once it's all dried. But what I now need to do is cut the back panel so I can then do the dowel holes for the top section, which will slot onto the back, and then once I've done that I can then start gluing all of the pieces together. Where I do the cut on the backboard, I want to hide it behind this shelf because I want it to look like just one panel opposed to there being a long cut across the back. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do it in line with the shelf, and that will be where my panel sits. So just stick that there. So I now know that this line is exactly where it will go across. So what I'll do is I can now put my mark in here. I could do the same again. So when I go to do my cut, I'll do it directly across that line, and that will then hide that cut behind this shelf unit there. So I'll be happy with that. I've just noticed I've done a dowel cut too deep. I'll fill that back out. If you do cut a dowel and it goes too deep, just get a screw, just screw it into the top and pull the dowel out, and then just get a bit of the sawdust that you've got, or anything really. You could either just get another dowel, cut a small piece off of it, pop it in, and then put your dowel back in. That'll bring it back out to level. So not a problem. Just get a screw, something very thin, to just pull that out, and you'll be good to go. Sorry, so these dowels that go in here into these side panels essentially are going to hold the weight, majority of the weight of the Murphy bar, because this was what sticks to the back and these are what's going to be hanging off, and then it's all going to sort of frame into place. So I'm going to put 3. It may be a bit overkill once it's all glued and stuff, but I think better safe than sorry. I don't want to come in one day and it's just all falling off the wall, which I'm pretty confident won't be the case, otherwise I wouldn't be doing this. But and everything else I've done to date. So as you can see, I royally messed up this cut, and the reason being is for a multitude of reasons. One, my circular saw is just on its way out, but that's not the main reason. The main reason is I should have used a better table to stop the boards from folding in on themselves, which applies more pressure to the circular saw, which is probably why it's not lasting so long. And then thirdly is I should have also used a level, like a spirit level, to guide me along this board, and unfortunately as a result I completely messed this up. And what makes it worse is I probably didn't have to really do this cut in the first place. I could have just done it as one whole board and then just put the screws in. It would have been a minor thing. I could have made the screws a bit deeper and then just covered them over, and you wouldn't really have been able to tell. But I chose to do this solution. Now that I'm thinking about it, it really wasn't the greatest idea. So hopefully if you are doing something like this, you kind of learn from that and just think of alternative options, or just do a bit more preparation work when doing these cuts, because you know, it's a lot cheaper to do it once and do it right than having to redo it again. Right, so that cut came out absolutely horrendous. Let's hope the whole cut is covered behind the bar bit. I'm sure it will be. I really do need to get a new circular saw. Let's just hope it covers it. I'm sure it will. This bit will be going into the bar, so we'll get that lined up and then we can install this bit, and we'll just have to do it from the Okay, we are making good progress. So the bottom side is completely done. So I'm now going to remove all of these dowels, stick some glue in them, put the dowels back, put the top piece on and get it all glued, flip it over, put some weight on it, and wait for that to dry. And it is coming up really solid. I'm really happy with the way this back piece has come. I do know from previous experience that wood glue is absolutely rock solid. Right, so while this dries, I've kind of tried to add as much weight to it as possible just to help compress it, but looks pretty tight, so I'm pretty happy with it. In the meantime, I'm trying to calculate what height I need to set the bar at in order to have a completely flat bar once the leg comes down. So the internal dimensions lengthwise is 996. Is it 996? 966? Yes, sorry, 966. So the external dimension is 1 meter essentially. So the internal is 96.6, and then you've got the 18 mil either side. So what I've had to take into consideration is my hinge, which will be going on to the side, so that's going to be about 5 mil in. So I've got to take into consideration 5 mil plus the 18 mil, which gives me 23 mil. Then also the length of the leg, which is 966. So we've got the 966 plus the 23, which should be essentially where we need to start bolting it together. And with that said, with this back plate, again, thinking about it, I didn't really need to cut it. I could have just put it in place and then just bolted the back to the wall. I was kind of thinking at the time to do it where I'd put the cut behind the shelf, goes on the wall, and you wouldn't see any screw holes or anything, but essentially that still wouldn't have worked to the desired requirement. So in all fairness, I should have just countersunk, stuck it all together, put it on the wall, and then
filled and covered the holes at a later stage, but such is life, is what it is. So if you are doing something, I recommend just leaving the back plate instead of doing what I've done, leaving it as one piece and then just bolting it all to the wall. I think you'd get on much better like that. But I've already done it now. I think what I'll do is I'll get some thin ply, some really thin sheets of ply, and then put it in front of that top piece at least, so it gets rid of that horrible line. As you can see, I've now shaped the end, well, the leg essentially. So this frame here will be the leg, that is the bar top, and everything is now cut down to size, ready to go in. I initially had this oversized. I made an error in my calculation and I made it 700, which is the full width, and we didn't want it because we want to show this nice detailing around the edge. So I got my circular saw and I cut it down to size, and as you can see, it now fits in perfectly. So what we now need to do is get our dowels and insert them. So we're going to do 2, 2, 2 and 2, and the reason we're doing 2 is because we want to prevent twist once the hinges go on, so 2 will be adequately sufficient enough. We'll then start working on the side hinges. Now the best way to do these side hinges would be to use a router, and that will allow you to set the depth, and then you can nicely chisel out the section that you want. I don't have a router. I have been meaning to get one, and I will purchase one at some point, because I might want to add some nice detail finishing to this, but for now, what I've decided to do is I'm actually going to use a drill bit, and it's going to take much longer, but essentially I've got a drill bit that is the same width as that, so I'll use a drill bit to get my markings out. So I just have to drill a couple of mil in and then get a chisel to tighten it up. And the reason I'm not using a chisel altogether is because, to be frank, my skills with a chisel are not great at all, so I want to use an alternative method which will allow for a nice pleasing aesthetic look. So that's why I'm going to be using a drill bit, but I'll show you that bit in a moment. So now I've done my markings, I can now just remove all of these sections and start putting my dowel fixings in. As I said, this tool here is one of the best tools you can get, so I highly recommend using one of these. So all dowels are now drilled and everything slots together perfect. So now we're going to start gluing, and even though they've got dowels, when you glue in the drying process, it still might knock it out of line. So what we're going to use is, we've got some clamps. I've got 2 bits of off-cut wood, but they're extremely straight, and what we're going to do is we're going to glue our dowels, center pieces, and then we're going to sandwich them between the wood to make sure when it dries nice and straight and accurate. It does set pretty quick, so I'll leave it. Gives me time to clean up this mess. So as you can see, that's now clamped and sealed, so we'll leave that to dry, and then once that's dry we can remove it. Try not to get any glue stick between this, because you don't want this sticking to your frame. If you feel that you might make a mess, what you're better off doing is perhaps putting a bit of tissue or foil, so then it pulls off and you can sand it down. So what I've done is I've got my hinge, so essentially this is the hinge itself, and it rotates, got a little ball. So I've taken this section here and I've lined it up to the edge, and I've got a center marking, fits in right to the bottom. And then what we're going to do is we're going to get the large drill bit, and we're just going to keep drilling in, and then we're going to get a chisel and chisel it out. This is a way more time consuming method, so if you have a router, I highly recommend using that, as I would, but right now I'm a bit impatient and I haven't got a router. So hopefully that comes out. As you can see, I've now done that, so I'll get my chisel and I'll
take out the lines and straighten it up outside as well, and then I can then start edging it out, and at least I've got my depth. It needs to be a couple of mils, so I'm going to take it in a bit more, but it's just an easier way of getting it down, because if I got my chisel, I'm not that great with it, and I know what would happen. I would hack into it too much, or start chipping at the sides. So this is a much easier way of me doing it, and I can just tidy it up with the chisel as I go along. So first bit is on, and as you can see, so that now twists in place, so that will get screwed. This bit will get screwed to the main side and lock in place, and then yeah, it will rotate nicely off that hinge, and then it's got a bit of extra structural support with the metal plate, as opposed to it just being in the wood, because I think the wood would break being so close to the edge as well. So yeah, we'll do the same on the other side, and then that's our first bracket done, and we'll crack on with the second one. Right, so I have basically put the front panel on, and I've lined it up at the bottom so it's flush. So what I've then done is gone on the inside, and I've just drawn around it, so I can now move that and know exactly where that needs to be, and start chiseling that. Is it Tiddles?
You like that?
Oh, so I can start chiseling it out. Once I've done that, I can then get the boss's permission, see what she thinks. What do you think? You like it?
Yeah.
There you go.
Right, backboard's now installed. So now we can hang the Murphy bar and see how it goes. Right, so that's now done. There we go. Only thing left to do is just the hinges now on the legs. That is nice. Now sanded down the leg. Got to sand down the bar top. Annoyingly, there's this slight line, I don't know if the camera's picking it up, that runs through this top, so hopefully once I sand that gets rid of it. It's not a big deal, because actually I could take it out and switch it, but I'm pretty sure once I sand that, give it a light sand, that should disappear. But it's not overly that important. Main thing was getting the leg down level. Now it could be, I could shave probably another 3mm off this leg in order to line it up. As you can see, the bubble is in, but it's not 100% straight, about there, but it is fully in, so it is what it is. So what we're going to do now is attach the hinges. I've got these ultra thin hinges. Hopefully, hold on, there you go. These ultra thin hinges, but in order to fit these, I need to cut a small bit out in order to get that top section of the hinge into the frame so it sits nice and flush. So I've got the chisel. What we'll do is we're going to take a bit out on the other side of this leg, just where the hinge is going to sit. Take a bit out so it sits nice and flush in. We can screw it, and that is pretty much that bit done. And then the final bit is to sand the main frame and then oil it. We are using the Osmo 3032 clear satin, which is what we're going to use to cover it up. This is quite a small tin, but hopefully it should stretch. And then we're going to use just a normal dish sponge to rub it on. It's kind of got an abrasive scratch to it, so what we'll do is we will get our oil dripped on. Probably not the best way to do it, but I can just collect that, start rubbing that through. Making sure we get all of the creases. And that's the top done, and you can really tell the difference in colour. So I'm going to keep going through and I'll show you the finished product when we're done. And just so you can see the colour difference, it really brings out the grain, nice deep colour. So this Osmo stuff is fantastic. I used it on the desk over there and also on the stair rails. If you haven't seen that video, check the link in the up above. Really good video, that one. So here we go, the final finished piece. This is the Murphy bar hung on the wall. I added a nice little addition for a bottle opener on the side. I was thinking of perhaps putting one on both sides, but to be honest, the one's just fine. And obviously we've got the legs, and the nice thing about it is it kind of frames off the whole unit. I was actually thinking about getting a nice picture and putting kind of in there, just to make it look a bit more special. As you can see, the top of the bar kind of has a gap, and this is where the leg folds into it. But other than that, it is looks very purposeful. And so the way it's currently locked in, so it can't come down, it's locked in, and that is with a little pin. This was a temporary measure, but it's kind of just stuck really. There's a little pin at the top, and that comes out, and then this is the bar, and then that goes down, and there you go, all nicely finished off. So it sits nice on the corner just like that. And then yeah, we've got the hinges there, we've got the shelf units, and it is held up really well. This is actually, I actually built this probably about a year and a half, 2 years ago, and it's still holding up really fine. The surface, the Osmo oil's done a great job. There's no like bubbling or anything like that, and there's been lots of water spill on this, lots of that fluids, and it's fine, perfectly fine. So what I would recommend is probably just giving it a refresh of an oil, perhaps once a year or once every other year, depending on how often you use it. But other than that, very happy with this. So yeah, please do like, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.